6 times out of 10, your investors are investing in you. They're not necessarily investing in the show, they're investing in you. They believe in you and they believe in your passion. They believe in what you're excited about, and they're giving you their money.
All right, hello, welcome everyone to the American Theater Wing's Network for Emerging Leaders in the Theater for tonight's panel, So You Want to Be a Producer. I'm Melissa Cabral, Programs Associate here at the Wing. So a little bit about the network. The network bridges information and access for emerging theater leaders by providing information, training, insight, mentoring, and networking opportunities to young professionals interning and working in theater administration roles, both artistic and executive. And now I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Kayla.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, I'm Kayla Williamson, the Digital Content Strategist here at the Wing. And saving the best for last, please support the Wing by helping us continue to provide free resources like this panel to the next generation of arts workers. There is no donation too small.
Awesome. Thank you, Kayla. And now it's our pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening, American Theater Wing Board Trustee and Tony Award nominated costume designer, Emilio Sosa. So while Emilio comes on screen, I think there he is. Hi, Emilio.
Hello.
We're, again, so thrilled to have you. And Emilio, let me just brag on you a little bit. Emilio has styled artists such as Salt and Pepper, Diana Ross, Mariah Carey, just to name a few. He's also designed costumes for productions like Top Dog, Underdog, On Your Feet, the Emilio and Gloria Estefan story, Motown the Musical, Porgy and Bess, and Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. He's received both Tony Award and Drama Desk Award nominations and is the recipient of a Lucille Lortel Award, NAACP Theater Award, and LA Ovation Award. Emilio, I feel like if I keep listing all your incredible achievements, we may be here another 10 minutes. So thank you, and we turn the panel over to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure, Melissa, to be here. My first time moderating a panel, and I'm so excited. Usually I'm on the other side. But today we're going to speak to some really, really great individuals who work on Broadway and off Broadway and London, West End, and on tours. And today's topic is producing. And as a costume designer on Broadway, your producer is the most important, not the most important, but your producer really is the one who puts the team together and really keeps everything going. So I'm really interested in discussing how do you become a producer? What are the pitfalls? Do you go to school? Do you learn on the job? There's so many questions that I, as a personal individual, have that I hope some of you also are thinking about. And I'm going to get to that soon. But first, let me introduce our illustrious panel. First of all, we have Aaliyah Jones-Harvey. Aaliyah is an Olivier-winning, Tony-nominated producer and the only African-American woman to be a lead producing on Broadway, which is really huge on many levels. She spent the last 15 years mounting productions on Broadway and London West End with the focus on people of color on stage and behind the scenes, which is so important for the industry to grow, that she's always been a champion for that. Past productions include Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, A Streetcar Named Desire, Eclipse on Broadway, and currently on intermission, because we're all on intermission on Broadway, just waiting to get back. She produced Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of Temptations, and her upcoming shows are Get Up, Stand Up, the Bob Marley musical, and the highly anticipated MJ, the Michael Jackson musical, which is coming very, very soon to Broadway. So welcome, Aaliyah, to the Zoom world. Next
Thank
we
you.
have, hey, Alia, how are you?
Hi. Good to see you.
Amazing to read all your credits. It's just, you know what? When we see each other on the streets running around backstage, you never really realize how much input and how much you've done for someone like me of color to really be able to be in this space. So I'm going to just thank you here in front of everyone. Thank you for what you do. I'm going to introduce our other panelists. Matthew Rigo. Matthew is the co-CEO of the Araca Group. He's been a member of the Broadway League for 18 years, and he got his BFA in musical theater from the University of Michigan and an MBA from Fordham University. Producing credits include Diana, which is coming to Broadway, or it's on Broadway, but will open soon. You're in Town, Frankie and Johnny and the Clair de Lune, Wicked, and The Wedding Singer. And those are just a few of his many, many productions. In addition, the Araca Group provides merchandising services through the brand activating division for Broadway shows, musical artists, film, and TV. And for you guys who don't know what that is, that's t-shirts, mugs, anything that you want to buy to support the arts, they're part of that group. Matthew, welcome. Next, we have Michael. Michael's also the co-CEO of the Araca Group, the merchandising division, and the founding member of the company. Prior to Araca, he worked as the labor associate at the Broadway League, as the artistic administrator for Circle in the Square, and as the associate artistic director of the Berkshire Theater Festival. He served on the executive committee, labor commission committee, and the board of governors for the Broadway League. Michael received the BFA in musical theater from Syracuse University and a law degree from New York Law. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. So how do we start? I think I want to start with everyone just saying hello to everyone, and then just give us a little bit of your personal introduction aside from the amazing credits that I read. We'll start with Aaliyah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is an honor to be here with you all. I'm excited to be on a panel with Emilio and Matthew and Mike. And as Emilio alluded to, we do run into each other on the Broadway streets when we are going to see shows or headed to meetings or trying to get shows up. And so it's been an exciting journey so far, and these are my compatriots.
Cool. Matthew?
Oh, well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. We are big fans and supporters of the theater wing, and what you guys are doing is incredible. And it's nice to meet you, Amelia. We've known Aaliyah for a long time. We've run into each other many times in the theater, and I think we've even been co-producers on a few shows together. So we've done that as well. But quickly, my brother and I, we started the old-fashioned way. We were actors and we were directors, and we kind of came up through the ranks, doing that and being, theater, majors at different universities, he at Syracuse and me at Michigan. And then when we came to New York, we dove into the world of New York theater, not really knowing anyone, just having each other and our best friend, Hank, who's the third partner here at the Araca Group, Hank Unger. And along the way, we went to grad school. We got a couple of degrees, and that took us a little time to get going. But then we started producing and just slowly starting off Broadway and getting a few lucky breaks and moving to Broadway and touring and beyond. So we started at the bottom, as they say, where we were, tearing the tickets and cleaning the bathrooms, as well as producing the shows, all the glorious stuff. But then had some good fortune to be involved with some terrific productions that led us, beyond.
And Mike?
Thank you, first of all, for being here. I echo what those guys were saying. I miss seeing people in the theater, running up and down the streets, late to shows, meetings, all that stuff. My brother and I are actually in the same place. We're at our office today. We started coming back to the office, which feels like a huge step in the for us in getting back to work, doing the stuff that we love, which is producing shows. And as you mentioned before, we have a merchandising business that I'm sure I'll be unpacking and talking about that a bit more. But you know, we're gung-ho for getting back to work in a way that is going to be new and different and untested. And you know, I think there's been a tremendous amount of incredibly positive energy coursing through our business this last year. And I, for one, know that it's going to be a very exciting time to be working in the theater.
I think so. I agree, Michael. I think once we get started and running, it's going to be like gangbusters. I think it's going to, but I also, which we'll get to later, it also depends on what is curated for the stage, what's going to bring the audiences in. Since we won't have, I don't think at the very beginning, we won't have a deluge of tourists. So we're going to have to really curate shows that local New Yorkers, tri-state people are going to want to come and support, because that's going to be our initial audiences. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the meantime. But I wanted to start by asking, as a layman, because I'm always on the other side, what is a producer on Broadway or off Broadway? What does that mean? And Aaliyah, can you start us off? What does a producer title mean? What do you do?
I would say producers are the CEO of startup production companies, and that can begin from the seed of an idea for a show, and it can lead to securing rights for producing that show, or it can lead to development, securing commissioning work being written for a show, and then beyond that, really putting together the team that's going to bring that idea to life. And once you've put together that team and you've started down the development process, the producer's role continues to, I think, continues to evolve into becoming the salesman, the therapist, the negotiator, and the entire lot. It's like you're ultimately going to be doing deals with talent, with theater owners, with other producers, co-producers that you hope to bring on board your project. And so, and eventually, once the show is up and running and you're all excited, and even party planner, you know, because you want to celebrate that milestone of your show opening up. But once you've gotten through all of that, really understanding your audience and trying to present what the show is to audiences out there, so they're excited about coming to see it.
Cool. And Matthew, what does being a producer mean to you?
I think Aaliyah, you know, hit the nail on the head in most ways. I think the one part I think she undersold the challenge of is getting all the funds together, which is a major component of what we do. And obviously, you know, she's 100% right in terms of securing the rights and putting together the team, but it's then convincing other like-minded individuals that what we are endeavoring to pursue is worthy and has a pathway to profitability. You know, we often talk about, you know, everyone wants to be a Broadway producer, but not everyone wants to write a check to invest in a Broadway show, right? And I think convincing people to do that part is a challenge, because you have to present them an economic model that supports an artistic vision, that can lead to success. And if you're lucky and it's a show like Ain't Too Proud, you have the potential to be on Broadway and on tour and go all over the world, you know. And I think you can't ever promise that to people who you're, you know, bringing on board as partners and co-producers in the beginning. But that's the model. Especially if it's a musical, obviously. If it's a play and it's going to be, you know, Lady Day and it's going to be at Circle in the Square, and maybe that's all that it's going to be. It's one thing, but if you're going to do a musical, then you have to have a plan that really supports a business that could run for years and years and years. And I think if you're successful in articulating that, then the investors will come. Obviously, you have to create something that they want to see, and you think that audiences will want to attend. But it's bringing together those partners, I think, is one of the key elements that I find that you have to do as a producer.
And Mike, if I can ask you, is it, because I know you both, Aaliyah and Matthew, you mentioned securing funds. Is it easier to produce a project that has a name value to it that audiences already know than a new idea, something that no one's heard of? Do you think investors look at that as something to look for when they're thinking of investing in money?
You'll hear us all say this probably a lot. It depends. It depends a lot on the timing. You know, I think trying to hit the zeitgeist of the moment is it's something very hard to plan for. You need to get a bit lucky with that to find the right moment, because there are moments when shows that seemingly have great brand awareness don't translate into a musical. I think we're all kind of focused initially here, at least, about talking about musicals. Doesn't sing, and if that material doesn't sing in a way that's compelling, and you know, we all do workshops and readings, and we bring people in to see shows to try to, you know, to get them excited about what we're working on. You know, as Matthew and Aaliyah were talking about, you know, we're raising money. That's kind of our process for doing it generally. You can bring them into a show that has absolutely no name value. And when Matthew and I, our first musical was You're in Town, the musical. Terrible name value. The show sang. I mean, and we were able to, I want to say easily, because that's underselling the work that went into it. But we brought people to see this show, and they loved it, and it resonated with them. You know, other times we've had, you know, I won't say what it was because it didn't work out, but it was a big name for a big show, and we did a workshop of it, and in the end, we looked at each other and said, "Wow, even though this is a huge brand, has global awareness around it, it just doesn't sing as a musical." So it kind of goes to there's no bad idea, there's just poorly executed ideas.
Cool. I have an interesting question for you guys on You're in Town. Did you ever think of changing the name?
No.
No.
Well,
okay,
we talked about it, but the answer was always no.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Okay.
We're not like naive to. Well, we were very much aware that it was a bad title, but it was also the thing that brought us awareness and brought the show notoriety, and was the only title the show could have, really.
Cool. And I touched on it really quickly when I did the introductions, but can we touch on the pros and cons of graduate school? Because I know when I came into the business, I didn't go to graduate school for theater. So I started from the bottom up. And I wonder how important is that for young people who are now in college and they're thinking of getting into the business? Do you recommend graduate school?
I mean, I went to graduate school, you know, having, you know, coming out of Syracuse University with a BFA in musical theater, which is a great degree if you want to be an actor or dancer or choreographer, and those were all the things I was trying to do at the time. But wanting to go into the business side of theater, I felt underprepared, from the smarts part. Like I felt like I just needed to, jumpstart my brain to that other side of my brain. The creative part of my brain was ticking, but I needed to start thinking critically. And look, I went to law school not because I ever thought I was going to be a lawyer. I probably should have thought about it more in retrospect, because it's hard. 3 years in law school is it's a lot of work. But I knew if I wanted to ever have a career on the business side in show business, broadly speaking, I needed to get smarter, and I felt like law school was going to help me get smarter, and it did. I can read a contract now. You have to do actually a lot of math at times in law school, so that helped me, remember 8th grade algebra, which I keep.
Oh my God, I'm in trouble then, because I don't remember.
So,
I couldn't do any of that anymore. So then, Aaliyah, how does it, when I said that you're the only African-American woman to be a lead producer on Broadway, what does that say to you as a woman of color and as the industry at large?
We need more. I think that what I've discovered over time, and I'm going to go back to your last question too, but what I've discovered over time is that this is a very small community. I think that over the last year, there's been a lot of examination about how difficult it is to get in, to find that opening, to make that contact that creates the opportunity to do something on Broadway. I was lucky enough to have a business school mentor, and would I recommend graduate school? So business school was expensive at NYU to follow up with a career on Broadway. I started out on Wall Street after business school, and I spent 5 years doing that. I had no idea that Broadway was in my trajectory. But I was lucky enough to take an arts administration course from Joseph Volpe, who was the general manager of the Metropolitan Opera when I was in, so this is a long time ago, but when I was in business school, and that was my crash course on production. He happened to be negotiating 17 union contracts that were in a stalemate at the time that we were taking the course. And so our case study was to help him through all of these contracts. And as I say to anyone who gets the opportunity to come to New York, or if you're already in New York, do yourself a favor and do the tour of the Metropolitan Opera. You will see all of the departments in one building. It's an amazing chance to see the costume designers on one floor, and the composers working on orchestrations on another floor, and the lighting, and all of it is housed in Lincoln Center in one building. And so you get a chance to really understand all of the mechanics of what's going into making the show happen. And so that being said, it was serendipitous that I took that course. I got really excited about it. I was introduced to my producing partner, who's still my producing partner 15 years later, while I was in business school. And he talked to me about his ambition to bring an all-Black production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof to Broadway. Now, at the time, it wasn't, I could be a producer on Broadway. It was like, well, I'm raising money for a hedge fund right now. Maybe I can transfer those skills to help raise money for for getting the show up on Broadway. And that was the genesis of getting into this field. And I was just lucky enough that happened. It was definitely a New York moment. So what I would say is that it's a small community that's been very gracious and has embraced us as producers, even though we came from a Wall Street background. You know, we've all gotten to know each other over the time that we've been on Broadway. And so I think the biggest challenge for new producers that think that they want to produce on Broadway is really figuring out how to open that door and making those contacts. And there's really no, the invisible barrier that no one talks about is the curation, which I think you alluded to earlier, is how you get the show that you're really excited about on Broadway. But otherwise, there's really no barrier that's in place. So I say all that to say the water's fine, come in.
So then if I can just think about it. So while a graduate degree is great, you don't think it is necessary if you have the desire to succeed. Because I think that's what I found in my career, that like I said, I didn't have the graduate degree, but I wanted to be in it, and I just worked my tail off to where I got where I got. So Matthew, you got a BFA in theater, musical theater.
Yep.
And so did Mike. Did you guys know early on? How early on in your young life did you think you wanted to be involved in theater? If you went to that point of getting a BFA, I mean an MFA.
Yeah. I mean, look, my brother and I, we started doing plays together when we were 7 and 9 years old. You know, he's older, so just make sure that's clear. Seemed a lot more back then, but not now. So we were doing plays and musicals together from the time we were kids, and then we were doing horror movies in our basements, and we were neither one of us, not surprisingly, were star athletes in high school, but we both got cast as the leads in the musicals, right? And I think that's just where we found success in life. That's where we found affirmation for who we were as people, and I think it's where we found our people. Theater people are our people, and storytellers. And we didn't. Our family, there was no one before us involved in the theater business at all. Our father was a great storyteller, and as was our mother. And but I think when we were deciding, do we want to go to college and study business or anthropology or psychology or musical theater, it just seemed to make sense. I think, I mean, I can't speak for my brother fully, but I know for myself, I didn't go to University of Michigan's musical theater program thinking I was going to be a Broadway actor for my life. I never really thought that was my calling, but I knew I wanted to be in the theater business. I knew I wanted to be part of putting together shows, creating shows, and I was always directing shows. Like when you're in college and everyone's like, God, I didn't get cast this spring. What am I going to do? I was like, well, why don't I direct a play? We'll all be in it. They're like, okay, great. And that was always that spirit of just trying to be the instigator. I think was something my brother and I both had in common our whole lives, and we always had one business or scheme or plan going on from the time we were kids, and it just felt right when we had come to New York. And we both spent a few years here kicking around doing off Broadway or non-equity tours or off Broadway shows as actors and directors and whatnot. But there was my brother and I both broke up with our girlfriends and moved in with each other and had keeping the overhead low. And it was just one day where Michael was like, should we just produce a show? I mean, this is like, what are we doing? We've been to grad school, we're doing all this stuff. And it was really, in some ways, that simple. I don't know if we didn't really have a 5-year plan when we started, for sure. But we started with that question of, we had a lot of friends who all had theater companies who were sitting in their basements, reading plays and talking about plays they wanted to produce. And that was never our thing. Our thing was to just start doing it. So we did.
Wow. So, and this is for general for the three of y'all. So if there's a young person or any age person that wants to start producing in their own community, what are three things that you would recommend they do if they can't come to New York and, like we did, start from the bootstraps up? Are there like certain things that are universal when you start to produce that you should always think about that you don't learn at school?
Raising money. I don't think that they spend enough time on the elements of it. In the world that we live in, we are producing multi-million-dollar productions, and so there's a legal structure that people are investing in, and so understanding all of that, I think, is an important element of getting involved, and it might be an intimidating element for getting involved in producing shows. If you're thinking about producing something in your community, figuring out what you want to produce is I think, what is the thing that you're passionate about that you want to go spend a lot of time convincing other people to be passionate about, whether it's raising, you're going to be raising money from friends, family, people in the community to put on this show that you're so passionate about. And then you might be involved in, if you're producing locally with a company, that company may already have a cast and may already have all of these creative elements that they've organized. But if they haven't, you may be involved in that element of it too. And then ultimately, the third part would be, how are you going to convince people to buy tickets to see your show?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a show that you're doing for a community free of charge, but even if you are doing it free of charge, how are you going to get people to know that it's out there to come and see? And I think that's been one of the exciting things that I've seen developing during this shutdown and the pandemic, is really creative ways to break through the noise of everything coming to my email inbox to figure out, this is the thing I need to be watching on my box tonight. So I feel like that if you can figure out how to be the thing that people really want to be doing in the midst of all this noise online right now, I think that's a great lesson to learn that you can carry forward into the in-person, the live world.
And this is for Mike. Question: how do you, since Aaliyah alluded to it, we've spent the last year in our boxes, literally. How do you use social media to engage an audience to come back? How important is it now to have a social media strategy?
Yeah, Mike, please tell us how, because Lee and I are wondering.
We're all working on it. That's like the $64,000 question. How do you get bodies back into the seats when we spent the last year with streamers giving you everything at home?
Well, it's a great question, and obviously I don't know the answer, right? I have feelings on what I think could happen, and we are talking to each other a lot, and I try to make sure that we don't get caught up in our own little echo chamber of trying to convince ourselves that people are desperate to come back to the theater, because I'm desperate to go back to the theater. A year ago, I probably didn't really want to go to see another show. Like, I had to see shows.
I know.
Now I'm like, huh.
I want to be in tech.
Watch something. I mean, it's funny, as Matt said, we're co-producers on Ain't Too Proud with Alia. And co-producing for us means literally we just raise some money. We do the merchandise for the show. We did not make the show in any way. We were not, we can't take credit or blame for it, but we loved it. And what we have on our hold music every year we put like the shows that we're working on, our hold music. And I called into the office yesterday and one of the songs came on. And I'm like, it's such a great song. That was such a great, like I could see the moment happening on stage. And I'm like, it's a long way of saying, how can we put that into social media? I think social media is going to be 90% of how we're going to get people back to the theater. We're not going to sell newspaper ads. We're not going to be putting up billboards. We're not going to be paying for radio. It's going to be all social media.
Social media and word of mouth, right? Which is huge in New York. Yeah. You have to tell your neighbors and tell them how wonderful it is and to come in. I want to get to something because I see our time is coming up to our questions and answer segment. How do we, we've had 2020 is bookended by the social justice reckoning that America's going through and the pandemic. Two things that I think that have affected people of color the most, and especially theater. How is your company figuring out how do you bring people of color into the fold? I know I mentioned that Aaliyah's company that's always been part of her mission and the work they do. But as bigger for the entire industry, what do we need to do to have more people of color, not just on stage, but behind the scenes as producers, directors, lighting designers? Do you guys work on that actively now for the next coming year?
Well, I'll talk about it.
I think it goes beyond the next coming year. I think it's, one of the things we've heard a lot, people have done a lot of listening in the last year, which I think is important. And I think people have done a lot of reflecting, but I also think there's time for action too. And I think people just need to be actively pursuing how do we not only open our arms, but give opportunities for a wide range of people to be involved in our business and in a wide range of positions. And I think if it's consciously part of what we're doing on a daily and weekly basis, and it might not be huge. Like, look, we certainly cannot promise that we are going to be making huge sweeping changes that are going to affect the whole industry. But hopefully we can make take little actions and little steps that all add up to being a part of a bigger movement. And for us, I think that's what we keep looking for and talking about is what are ways that we can be part of a new American theater and a new way of looking at our business. And if we do one thing right or two things right, or hopefully they build upon each other. And
well, I'll interject too. So our next musical after Diana is a musical adaptation of The Outsider, by the book by S.E. Hinton, the film by Francis Ford Coppola. And we're very fortunate to have Lisa Tomei as our director, a Black woman. I think she will be the first Black woman to direct a new musical ever on Broadway. Knock on wood that we were able to bring it to Broadway, as she is a big part of the movement, and said to us very clearly, "Hey guys, we're going out of town. I want to have 5-day rehearsals, and I don't want to do 10 out of 12s." And we said, "Great, you're right. We should." That was but that's but one demand that has emerged from the movement over the last year. And my brother and I would be the first to say we're privileged, right? Like we were very fortunate in how we got to Broadway, and I think we take that privilege as a opportunity to hopefully expand the places at the table for people who might not have been as privileged as we've been. And it's an important part of our mission. It always has been. I think the work that we've done we've tried to do that traditionally, but I think going forward, it is a part of almost every discussion that we have is how can we expand, and really it's expanding opportunities as Matthew was talking about moments ago, and that's it is our business plan, like our business plan.
And I think that there are, I mean, as I was saying earlier, there are a number of initiatives that have launched in the last year that will assist in helping people figure out that entry point into the industry, which is so elusive. I mean, all of the entertainment industry is set up that way. It's all set up to be, you know, really difficult to figure out how you navigate getting into it. But there's some resources that you can get through the wing. If producing is specifically what you're interested in, there's the Commercial Theater Institute, which has been an on-ramp for a lot of people to making the connections to co-produce the show, meet a lot of producers, learn the ropes, and then, you know, move forward into producing their own show. My producing partner and I, Stephen Bird, and I have started a fellowship program that we've partnered with Columbia University. So you're not taking school all over again, but it's a one-year opportunity to meet all of the people that you really want to meet, to be able to pitch those theater owners your concepts, to be able to take courses at Columbia with a stipend. It's a great program. So that's another opportunity that you can look into. I see in the chat the Open Stage Project, which is amazing opportunity for students to learn about all of the different roles that happen behind the scenes, all of the crew jobs. I mean, crew jobs are through unions, and figuring out a way into those unions is, of course, elusive in itself as well. So figuring out which unions you're interested in would be another research project in trying to understand how you get into the industry. But those are all specific ways that you can go about getting the information that you need to break into the industry. And there is the Black Theater Coalition, the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, have all come up with a strategy for helping you break into the industry. So,
and Aaliyah, you have a fellowship that you created. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was saying. So it's a one-year opportunity. We will be taking 1 to 2 emerging producers each year, and through mentorship, a stipend, a $20,000 payment into their production costs of a new show that they're developing. Those emerging producers will have the opportunity to meet with current producers, to meet with theater owners, to meet with general managers, to understand the Broadway ecosystem, and at the same time take courses in the MFA program at Columbia University, and develop their work. So it's a year to move forward on something that you've been trying to produce. It's called the Front Row Productions Fellowship. And you can find that on Columbia University's website.
Cool.
And I'll say the application period hasn't opened yet. It will likely open right at the end of this school year to start in the fall.
Cool. Now, if you guys don't mind, I have a couple of questions that our audience have been asking. And a lot of them, not a lot, but a few are about funding, because everyone thinks that the only way you could be a producer is if you have a lot of money. And from our conversation tonight, I've learned that you don't have to have a lot of money. You just have to have a lot of passion and really find people who are doing it. But where does the funding come from now, you think? Who's funding mainly the Broadway shows?
What's tough, if someone's an emerging producer, right? So if someone is they're trying to break into the business, it's a different answer, I think, than saying, where is Aaliyah going or where are we going for funding, right? You know, I can just tell you from our experience when we first started, you know, the first money that we ever raised was from ourselves, from our closest family and closest friends who didn't mind losing money, right? Because we didn't know what we were doing and we just went for it, right? We didn't raise a lot of money. It wasn't millions of dollars in those days, but it was tens of thousands of dollars when you added it all up, you know. And it wasn't until we were fortunate to be co-producers on the Vagina Monologues years ago off Broadway, and we went out to, I think it was 5 or 6 investors, 4 of whom we didn't really know. So 2 were people we knew, and 4 were people we sort of just met. One was a guy who was like involved with the Cleveland Film Commission because we were born and raised in Cleveland, so we knew him. He introduced us to one person. It was like that, and luckily that show was a hit, and all those investors made a very good return. And those people have, in many ways, are the sort of the center circle of our web of investors that we still use for a lot of shows. You know, cutting to where we are today, you know, it's interesting. And Aaliyah, I'm curious how you look at this, but I know there are a lot more people who are interested in investing in shows today than even 10 years ago. People who are entrepreneurs, people who are in, you know, finance, sure, of course, but I think there's a lot of people who want to get involved, and it is networking to the nth degree. You know, there's certainly people who are industry players, and we all go after each other, and we all share, and we all help one another out when we can. But you know, there are a lot. It's really networking, and you never know where you're going to find an investor. You just, I think, you never know who that person is you're going to meet, who might either be able to write a check, or, you know, we have this one woman who's a co-producer of ours on The Outsiders, and she has continued to raise money throughout the whole pandemic for us. We only had a little bit left that we needed. We had like, it doesn't matter how much, but we had a small amount left. And every couple of months during the pandemic, she's like, I found one more person. They want to put in, you know, a little bit. And we're like, send it in. We'll still accept it, you know, because we could have accepted checks till the end of last year. And she ended up finishing up the last little bit we had. And she was just passionate about the show. She was, you know, she was born and raised in Oklahoma. She loves Tulsa. She loves the book, and she loved the reading. And so that was not something we planned, but it was a relationship that we had fostered, you know, over a long period of time.
Is that part of being successful, is believing in the material that you have? Do you have to go into it 110% to really then sell it to other people?
It's critical, because you're going to also confront so much rejection, and without having some kind of emotional connection to it, it can become very discouraging, you know. And second to that, you know, Aaliyah, you guys have been working together, you and Robert, for 15 years now, right? You know, Matthew, Hank, and I, we've been working together almost 25 years. So I think I don't want to undersell how important it is if you can have a partner or partners to work together, because it is a lonely job too, because you do very often have to push the rock up the mountain, and when no one wants to get involved with it, no one wants to direct it, no one wants to design it, no one wants this is a great idea, you know. So if you have someone who's there with you, you know, at the end of the night, and you're like, oh, should we be doing this or not? Because we're constantly asking ourselves, should we keep going, right? Like you have a bunch of different, you know, we're lucky we have a bunch of different projects, and we're constantly trying to evaluate, should we go to the next level with this? You know, it's, you can call it you're hedging your bet, but we're constantly trying to evaluate, is this going to work? And having good partners, you know, having soulmates, friends, you know, pick it. I think
It's a community. So it's a community. Theater, I found, is a community. It's the same people you see on the way up are the same people you see on your slower moments too. So it's about building relationships. I have a quick question, and then I want to ask everyone for the best advice that they've ever gotten and the worst advice. Has there ever been a show that came to you and you turned it down and it became a huge hit and you went, damn, why didn't I do that show? Is there anything out there now that you can tell us?
Kinky Boots.
Oh, wow.
We passed on Kinky Boots, yeah.
And it wasn't because I went to the reading and knew that it was going to be a hit. It was obvious. There was a standing ovation in the room at the reading. I mean, you know, and but we were raising money for another show, and we were committed to that. And it was just kind of, you know, we didn't have the bandwidth to really devote to two things at the same time at that point in our career. And so, you know, so we said, we can't, we're focused, you know, this is what we've committed to, and this is what we're going to do. So we didn't do that one. And I'm like,
oh, I know. Yeah. Jerry Mitchell's amazing.
Yes.
So how many shows do you produce at once?
Well, I think what Matthew was saying, like, you know, as you start to build a Rolodex and build relationships, you can expand your capacity, you know. But if you're calling friends and family and friends of friends, then you're really only going to be raising money for one thing at a time.
Right.
I mean, once you have a Rolodex and you can reach out to 100 people at the same time and hope that 3 of them get back to you, you know, then you can start thinking about doing more than one thing at once.
Cool. And quickly, I want to touch on Mike and Matthew on merchandising. How important is merchandising now to the bottom line of the success of a show?
Well, I don't know if it's to a show. I don't think a show ever makes it or breaks it based on merchandising. You know, we've been lucky. We've done merchandise for some shows that have had huge success in merchandise, but those are usually shows that have huge success selling tickets. So, you know, we're a co-producer on Wicked and we do the merchandise on Wicked. Yeah, we've sold a lot of merchandise for Wicked.
So, but that's not a part of then like the big picture. It's like, okay, we can merchandise this show in a certain way. There's a segment that we can touch. So when you decide on the shows, you don't look at that aspect of the business.
If we have a successful merchandise line, it's oftentimes a reflection, I think, of a show having a successful marketing campaign, a successful advertising campaign, press. Like when we're working on shows where producers are able to look at the whole picture, and that merchandise is a piece of that plan. You know, I mean, years and years ago, we had a sit down, you know, meeting with Nancy Coyne at Sereno Coyne, and we asked her to talk about advertising as it related to merchandising, and she said, "Well, no one's ever asked me that before." And you know, and she was one of the biggest advertising agencies, you know, in our industry, and it was a real aha moment for us that perhaps we were onto a way of approaching it in a different way, and so that's always been a cornerstone for us.
Money you're not having to spend on marketing, and which is how I tend to look at it. Then I think there is an intrinsic value beyond, oh, you made a couple bucks selling a t-shirt. But if you got enough people wearing t-shirts or drinking coffee mugs or pick whatever your merchandising, the item is, that is money ideally that you don't then have to additionally spend to advertise your show. And it
So
doesn't take that water cooler. If we do our job right as merchandisers and we make something that someone wants to wear, if it's an apparel or drink out of as a water bottle and take it to school the next day, then ideally there's a moment where someone said, oh, did you see that? Or what is that? Oh, it's this most amazing show I've ever seen. Ain't too proud. You have to go see it.
it's true because it's true because when you see a T-shirt running around town, that's more advertising. That's stronger than listening to an ad on the radio or on TV or anything. It's people when they really connect to it. So in the last 2 minutes that we have, which just flew by, thank you so much for the generosity of information that you've given us. And this question is for everyone. Can you give us one piece of advice that you received that really turned your career around that you think could help someone out there that wants to produce? Aaliyah, we'll start with you.
Stay connected to all of the people that have ever invested in your shows. And I would say that 6 times out of 10, your investors are investing in you. They're not necessarily investing in the show, they're investing in you. They believe in you and they believe in your passion. They believe in what you're excited about, and they're giving you their money. So ultimately, that carries forward into helping you with all of the networking that you're doing and figuring out how you're going to build your go-to list of people that you want to offer these opportunities to, because even though there I don't know, 25, 30 different opportunities that might come up on Broadway in a season, and there are hundreds of off-Broadway and regional opportunities that might come up in a season. Ultimately, when you call an investor, they want to hear your story and why it is that you're so excited about what you're presenting to them.
And Mike, real quick, one piece of advice that you can give out to all our audiences that want to produce and be where you are right now, what would you say?
Plant many seeds. That was probably some really important advice we were given early on. Which meant, I think, and what our take is, you can't just have one show that you're trying to develop. You need to have multiple shows that you're trying to work on, because the timing of trying to get a show to fruition is so complicated. Schedules, money, theater availability, all the things. So as many different seeds that you can plant, and then think of it like a good farmer can't have an infinite amount of seeds. You have to have enough that you can cultivate properly, but plant many seeds.
No, that's a great word, cultivate. Relationships are like farming. You have to cultivate and put time into it. And Matthew, one piece of advice that you want to implant in our audience tonight.
You never know where a hit's going to come from. And I think you have to really be open and open to both saying, I'm going to go for it no matter what, and also open to saying it's time to cut bait and move on. And those are tough. Those are really tough moments. And it's knowing, when to do that. And sometimes you may be in love with something and think, my God, my kid is the prettiest kid on the block, but boy, no one else sees it, And sometimes you're like, I don't really like this young kid. How did he keep sticking around? But everyone else seems to love it, so we're going to go with it. And then you fall in love along the way. So I think you never know where a hit's going to come. So
never know. So that's why you got to be kind to everyone.
Yes.
Is what I would say. Be kind to everyone. Well, I want to thank Aaliyah, Michael, and Matthew for spending this time with us. It's been amazing. I learned so much about what it is to be a producer. And my big takeaway is it's passion and believe in what you're doing and be kind to people. So with that, I want to thank you all. And I want to thank the American Theater Wing for having this platform for us that we can discuss what we love. Come back. Broadway is coming back. If you can't come to Broadway, support your local community. Theater is everywhere. It's not just in New York. Theater is down the street from you. Support your local artists. That's me and my soapbox. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio.